Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you an incredible puzzle, study even, where it is white to play. And you might look at this position and think, wow, how in the world is there something for white here? Whether it's a win or a draw, how is that even going to happen? So I'm going to show you. So take a moment and take stock of this position. White has two rooks and black has a queen. So they're not exactly canceling each other out, but we can just say roughly they're canceling each other out. White has a bishop here, and black has a bishop there. And you can see that black has two extra pieces, right? If you just do a quick body count. Okay, what does that mean? That means that black is probably going to be a little better, right? They're up two pieces. Okay, how does that really work in terms of this puzzle? What's the right move? So there are two candidate moves that you might think about. You have this rook to h6 check, and you have this rook to a1. Both of these seem to be doing something, and I guess the goal is to see if you can decipher which one is the correct one and which one's not. And more importantly, why. Okay, so let's start looking at rook h6. If you make this move rook h6, there are a couple of moves for black. They can of course move their king, but I think the better refutation to this move actually is bishop b6 check. This is checking the white king and blocking the check at the same time. Pretty cool move, right? So it should be said here that if the white king tries to run away, going to king d5, this is actually going to lead to a mate in 3, starting off with knight e3, and whether the king goes to e4 or whether the king goes to d6, it's going to be mate either way. So that would be mate. And if they go d4, you have this check. And then after they go king f4, you have a mate, right? So you don't want to go to, if I can go backwards, you don't want to go to d5. So really you only have two moves in this position. You have either king d5 or rook takes. So you have to give up the rook. And here you might think, and this is kind of where I got messed up in my calculation, you might think that after this capturing with the knight, you can pin the queen to the king with your rook. And that sounds great, and maybe this is where you stopped in your calculation. Maybe you saw all of this. But here's the deal. This move with the knight is the only win for black, which is knight a4, unpinning the queen. So that causes the king to move. Doesn't really matter where. Here. And then just move your queen out of the way. Your king is now no longer tied to this queen through this pin, which means black is completely winning. Okay. So what does that mean? What is the point of all of that explanation? The point is that rook h6 check is refuted by bishop b6 check, right? So if you're calculating this in your own game, that's a refutation. You make a move, and they have one move that just destroys all of your variations. It's no longer a good move to make this rook h6 check. Okay, let's look at this other move. And this is kind of where the fun starts. So if you're still with me, thank you for being here. Rook a1. What's the point? Well, it seems pretty obvious, right? The point is I'm pinning the queen to the king. And if you take this, this will be fine. This will be a draw, right? You have a rook and a bishop, and you have two bishops and a knight. Plus I have this pawn. This is fine. There's no danger here. Okay. So if I make this move, what is black's best move? Well, you really had to be prepared. You had to be really prepared when you made this move because there is this forcing check. Bishop b6 check. And look what the bishops are doing. They're cutting across, plus this knight is controlling d6. So there's only one move for white, and it's a scary one. King d5. Do you ever really want to walk into this kind of double check action? That's a scary thing to walk into. Well, here's the thing. If you didn't get this far in your calculation, try your best to calculate right here. What is black's best move? Take a second and see if you can figure that out. And while you're taking a second, be sure to subscribe if I have not said that yet. Helps me out a lot. Okay. So you might think knight e3, right? Of course. It's actually not the best move for black because it turns out king e4, crazy to think, this king is safe in the middle of the board. I'm threatening to take your queen. So the best for black here is to check me, and I have to just go back and forth between d3 and e4. Check, I go back, and now what? I'm still threatening this pin. You have to go back and forth. This king has to go back and forth. There's nothing you can do. If you want to mess with that position, it'll be in the description. The whole puzzle will be, so feel free to navigate there. Okay, so let me go back. Turns out knight e3 is not the best move. Okay. Now again, the logic for that is I need to get rid of this bishop because this bishop is currently defending this rook. And my real problem is this rook, because this rook is pinning my queen to the king. All right, you see this logical step we're making? So with that in mind, this move makes a bit of sense. Bishop c6 check. I'm giving up my bishop for nothing, it looks like. Knowing that if king takes, that's actually a blunder, because now I take this bishop with check, that's the important detail, forcing the king to move, and I will win this rook. And just to make sure it's really clear, if I do this, I take, remember the pawn is going this way, if you looked at the coordinates, which means that this check is not winning anything because the pawn's going this way. Right? The pawn cannot capture. That's not a legal move, only this way, in case you thought that. Okay, so what if they don't take? As black, you have to calculate what happens if they take. If they take, you win, because you remove the defender of the rook. What if they don't take? And here's where the puzzle just is amazing. King e6. Okay, what do I do here as black? Well, you might think it's the same principle. I need to get rid of this rook. Sorry, this is a bishop. I need to get rid of this bishop in order to get rid of this rook. So what I do is I go bishop to d7. What in the world? You're giving up your bishop again on another empty square. Okay. Well, what's the difference here? If I just move back, we'll say, saying, okay, you're going to draw, go back and forth. It turns out, and maybe I show a different variation, but it turns out it's a little different now that the bishop is here. So black is actually winning in this position because knight e3 check, and then after, let's just say king e4 or king d6, doesn't really matter. We'll go e4 because it was safe in the other variation. Bishop f5. Notice how this bishop now is going this direction. Okay, now what's the point of this? King f4 or king f3? Well, let's stay on light squares, I guess. Let's go king f3. And you can go into these details. This position, after queen takes, look at this. I take the rook, and now what? Now I'm up 2 pieces. This is actually a win for black. I can trade off these bishops. This guy is protecting this one, and this guy can run away. I can trade off the bishops, and it's a win. I can trade the knight for the bishop. It's a win. Either way, it's a win. So, that variation, it's kind of wild. If the king moves away, there's something like that. So, just another way to show it. If the king goes this way, this is not actually winning for white. It's not even drawing for white because I first take. After the recapture, I get your rook. Right? That's the point. If you're getting anything from that variation, the point is I get your rook, I trade a queen for a rook, and then I get a rook for free. That's enough. Okay, well, you have to calculate what happens if they take, right? And this is where it's crazy. And this is where white can be so sneaky. White actually takes this. That's the best move in this position, right? Let's just think about that for a second. You just avoided this check, right? Sorry about that. You just avoided this because you said if I take this, they'll take with check. And then you go here. But in this position, you can actually take it. If you take this, they take with check. And in this position, you have four choices. E8, E7, D6, and C8. Okay. One of these draws. Only one. Can you find it? I'll give you one more pop quiz here. One more attempt to see if you can find the answer to this puzzle. The answer is E8. And I'll show you why. and it's going to have to do with this diagonal, and I'll kind of explain that in a moment. So after king e8, here's what's amazing. You think you just lost your rook. Well, yeah, you did, because that's the best move for black. If not, you're going to take their queen. So they take you. And that may seem like you're lost now, right? Your king is out in the middle of nowhere. Your rook is disconnected. You have this pawn. We can get rid of it. Doesn't matter. Here it is. Rook a3 check. Now, why is this important? They'll take it, right? They have to. If not, you take their queen. Here is why going to e8 matters. Right here. b5 check. You can either take me or you can walk away. Does it matter? It doesn't. Why not? Look at that. That's stalemate. Going to this e8 square allowed the queen to get to a3 and block off this diagonal, which blocks off these squares. So, with a little bit of foresight, maybe you calculated that. If you calculated that, amazing job. So, let's just really quickly take a step back to make sure we understand the whole theme. White's fighting for a draw here. They went, after this check, they went into the line of fire. Look at that, into the line of fire. Black said, I'm not going to fall for this, because this is a draw. I'm going to give up my bishop for free. White says, I see that if I take here, I lose. But, my king being on e6, if you do this same maneuver, now I'm the one who's actually in the driver's seat in terms of the tricks, because I go to e8, blocking myself on these squares, and with the knight here and here, and with the bishop right here, forcing this whole sequence to play out. This puzzle is incredible because it is a stalemate. Forced stalemate. There's nothing better than a draw in this position. Look at that. That's just amazing. I don't know if you feel that way. I feel that way. I've never seen something where there are so many pieces on the board in the beginning. Look at how many pieces are on the board. And this one move kicks off everything. I just hope that you find that to be as interesting as I do. There are other variations. If you want to look into them, the position will be in the description. This is the most forcing. I think it's the one that is also the most interesting. This is the principal variation of the study. So other variations are not going to solve the problem in a different way. It's going to be a draw. So yeah, that is it for this video. If you enjoy the video and the content in general, be sure to consider subscribing. I put new videos out all the time, usually every day. And my whole goal is to help spread chess and help charity. So even a simple subscription that is free to you helps me out so much. But that's it. Thanks so much. Bye.